Well, today we are in Genesis 46 and 47, but I have picked out just a couple of verses that stood out to me in this reunion that happens between Jacob and Joseph. One thing that you do need to make note of if you have not read these chapters yet, just so that you're not confused, because it's kind of going back and forth with terminology. Remember that back in Genesis 32, I believe it was, God changes Jacob's name to Israel. So you're going to see those words kind of interchanging, and it gets a little tricky to make sure that you know that we're talking about the same person. But basically, the story breakdown here is that Joseph is in Egypt, and he is ruling, and he's got a lot of power there. And so Joseph is he's living a secure life, and his father catches wind of this, and God says to him, Jacob, Jacob, here I am, he says. I am God and the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. And I think this is really cool, because then when you hop over, so that was I should have said this, that was verse 2, 3, and 4. But if you hop over here to verse 28, I love this reunion, and that's really what I want to focus on. Jacob and Joseph are reunited. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father, in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck for a good while. Israel said to Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive. So you can only imagine, after having such separation from each other for such a long time, and that deep fear that each of them had about the other, whether or not they were alive. And to have this reunion, it must have been such a celebration. The entire family was together once again, and they were well received. Jacob had so many worries in his heart about going to Egypt, so many just prior history that he was worried about and fearful of, but he trusted God and did it anyway. I want you to think about a time in your life as we go through this message together that you were separated from a loved one, whether it was your family during a time of war, or a long trip that took you apart from each other. Think about the pain that comes in that waiting time of wondering, are you going to be okay? Are we going to see each other again? Sometimes reunions are tough. Maybe waiting for someone to come out of prison. Maybe being reunited with a parent we hadn't met before. There was a lot of reasons that Jacob could have used to prevent this uncomfortable action that he took to go and find Joseph in Egypt. But he trusted the Lord. And I can't help but think about the reunions that bring so much joy. The reunions of spending time with a friend we haven't seen in a long time, or even just those simple days of getting the kids off the bus and seeing their happy faces to be home. But the one reunion that I think we're all looking forward to the most is that day when we're reunited with Christ in heaven. What a glorious sight that will be. And I can only imagine how refreshing it will be to see him in all of his glory, to hug him and kiss him, and know that the rest of the world is off our shoulders, since he put them onto his. All right, so for today's creative side of things, we are going to really focus on those three verses as we talked about here, 28 through 30. And this is that meeting when they finally get together and see each other. Big family reunion, right? Big celebration. So there was, I had quite a time thinking about some of the more serious images that we could draw here, but what I couldn't get out of my head was this little old saying called, I love you a bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck.
And this to me is just a fun page. It's a joyous page. Why not be fun and silly with this one and keep it kind of simple? So today there's just one thing that I'll be teaching you, and that's going to be how to draw a bushel. Now, what's interesting is that I learned a little bit about a bushel and a peck. This is an old phrase that we say, you know, when we love someone, to the moon and back, right? We have these little sayings that we say to express how much love that there is. But here's a little bit of information you might not have known. So a bushel is actually 2 dry gallons. So it's measurement, both bushel and peck are measurements for dry ingredients. And it takes, so a peck, oh yeah, I said that wrong. A peck is 2 dry gallons, which means 4 pecks make 1 bushel. So that's where those phrases come from, and often we see this displayed as kind of a basket of goods of some kind, whether apples or ears of corn. And in this case, we're going to fill this basket full of love. So what I'm going to do here is to just draw for you a basket that looks like a bushel. And what I'm suggesting we do here, and you can decide on the size based on your washi tape, but I'm going to use this washi tape as kind of a center for the bushel. But instead of leaving these raw edges, what I'm going to suggest that you do is to cut them on a little bit of an angle, because we know that an old-fashioned basket or bushel has kind of a tapered look to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right here. And of course, this will just be our practice sheet. But this is just going to kind of be like that metal circle that we often see on those old-fashioned baskets, kind of holding all the raw wood together. And then what we'll do is to draw kind of on that same angle coming down shortly. Let's see if I can get a pen to work here. There we go. And kind of create the bottom. And I'm just using a regular ballpoint pen. I'm a big fan of a ballpoint pen. I like the texture that comes from just kind of some scribble lines. I like doing that and having it not be so purposeful. I think it's really great. I love to use my Sharpie, as you guys know, all the time. But this is just something, it kind of just gives you a different feeling, a little loose illustration, if you will. So once I kind of have the bottom of this sketched in, what I'm going to do is to start building in some of these, the plank, what would you call these? Basically like little palette pieces, right? All these coming together, and you're going to want to keep these kind of wide at the top, and then they're going to taper at the bottom. Okay, they don't have to be perfect, of course, because this is old wood, and so this is why I wanted to use my pen and just give it some sloppy little marks, roughen it up a little bit with some sketching marks. You can also, if you wanted to have some sort of a little baseline, or even at the top here, you could add in another little rim, but I like the raw look, I think, for this. So just a real quick sketch, but the fun part was adding in that little piece of washi to give it a little bit of extra color. And then when you have something like an object like this where it's sitting on the ground, or maybe we just want to make it look like it's not just floating, we're going to pick a side here, and in this case, because I am using my pen, I'm going to do some cross hatching. So cross hatching means I'm going in 2 different directions or multiple directions, and I'll go over it more times where I want it to be darker. So here where it gets closer to the basket, I'm going to go over it a few more times until it's the desired look that I want. So it's darker here right where the basket is hitting, and then I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of a space to see that it's sitting on something. After this, once we get this transferred into the Bible, what I'm going to do is look at whatever washi tape that I chose. So I would really strongly suggest that you choose something that has a fun pattern or lots of color, because what we're going to do is kind of create this illusion like there are hearts just flowing out, being overflowed with happiness and love. So you can either do these hearts just by coloring them in, or use a variety. Color some in solid. You can do some sketching of hearts with your pen. You could also do some stamps. I think that would be really cool if you're a stamper and you have little heart stamps, to just do some various sizes. And we might make them more congested here towards the bottom. I want to get some colors. I've chosen some colors that kind of match with my washi, just to kind of keep the color scheme going together. Got to sharpen this one up. I can see that. You can even change the direction of them, so tilting them as you go. But we'll continue to do this until we have kind of a flowing way. And I'll show you when I do the time lapse, when I get this on my Bible, how I'm going to kind of go up from it and then spread it out. So it looks like they've kind of dispersed out onto the page. Now you can definitely put in some words. I think for this one, my words are going to be very small and kind of whimsical within the hearts, but certainly if you wanted to leave space for your words, I would probably start with them first, then get your bushel on there, and then your hearts can kind of go around the wording. Oftentimes when we're doing stamping or coloring, it's hard to then write over the top of some of those materials. So pre-plan your words if you choose to do it a different way. I'm just going to bring them in such as this throughout, so it kind of looks like those words are flowing through the page. So very simple lesson today. Stay tuned for the speed drawing and you'll be able to watch me work through this one, and I hope that you enjoy today's lesson. All right, so you can kind of see how fun that is to just kind of build this bucket of overflowing hearts, and how much love there must have been in that precious reunion between Jacob and Joseph, especially after all those years of waiting. And I just think kind of as a finish to this page, what would be really fun is to just kind of take some color and lightly color in a little bit of the basket just to bring some color in. If you like the black and white, leave it as well. But I've just got a couple different shades of brown. One's kind of more of a red tone and some golden. So you can have some fun with that if you want to. Just light colors are good just to kind of imply some tone. And then, of course, with a finish of wording, like I said, for me, I think that the image kind of says what it needs to. But I am going to write in that little phrase throughout. So I'm just going to do it in my own handwriting. I'll probably just start up here. So I'll just go ahead and show you how I'm going to do this. All right, so just a little bit of handwriting, just keeping this one super simple, not worrying too much about anything super fancy, more as just a handwritten note of love for someone in a reunion. So thanks so much for joining me again today. I hope you've enjoyed this quick but fun lesson, and I am so excited to see your posts over on the Bright Bible Facebook page. We love to see what you guys are up to and how you're utilizing these lessons. Enjoy the next week of Read Through 2020.